Hello. Today's journey is with shaman, best-selling author, and host of Ceremonies Circle podcast, Alyson Charles Storey. I'm so excited to share her shamanic approach to living in alignment, embracing divine directives, and being in relation to the great mystery, what we call life. Alyson has permission to share the teachings and share the songs and the practices from other respected spiritual teachers from around the world. She has been featured on the Gaia Network. She was a resident guru at a best health site called Well and Good for many years, where she provided a monthly animal power and energy forecast. That's where I met her. And she made history, becoming the first person ever to perform on stage in the 25-year history of the HBO Film Festival, where she guided a shamanic journey for over 10,000 people. She spoke and performed live power readings at the world's largest ever female-led festival. That's right, called Pop Sugar Playground. And for you art lovers, one of my favorite things she's done is she was a meditation guide at Art Basel. Since I've known Alyson, she has written a book and released a card deck called Animal Power: 100 Animals to Energize Your Life and Awaken Your Soul. It has been a travel companion for me because Alyson has taught me power animals and their teachings, that they can help me trust my instincts and trust my intuition. They've helped me dissolve self-doubt that can block creative expression, allowing for a more authentic, spontaneous creation. Now, the wisdom is dripping all over this episode because, as Alyson is sharing, the animal powers are really helping us release any preconceived judgment. So, listen as she talks about life and death as a celebration, her creative journey, all of those surprises during the book, and always, always heeding the call. Alyson Charles Storey, I am so excited to see you, sister. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a hot minute. I feel like you've aged backwards about a decade. I don't know if you feel that way, but yeah, it's been a long time. We used to spend time together in a couple of my courses, but that was when I lived in Brooklyn. Now I have a different last name. Now I live in a whole different state. I'm sure both of our lives have drastically changed since then.
Drastically. Yeah, you helped me get through a big emotional push and just really connect with some power animals too. I mean, the black jaguar medicine that we shared was huge for me.
Hmm. Yeah, you've really been deeply on the path. It's been so beautiful to even witness more from afar. Just you just steadily, step after step, the path and you are still weaving together.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are, one step at a time. And to the listeners, we were spazzing out and chatting, and we were just talking about Lotus Way, getting into our full bloom.
Hmm.
Send that to everybody too.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you too. You have had an amazing love story and creative process with your book and all your beats, your music.
Hmm.
I can't wait to tell you what an inspiration they have been.
I'm excited to hear. I know I was so intrigued that you said the raccoon. I don't know where you want to start, but I was so curious how the raccoon came in and you said it was a part in you wanting to do this interview or
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think animals, the power animals will just present themselves. And I've never worked with raccoon energy at all. And to my surprise, I live in Hoodsport, Washington, and I haven't seen very many of them. So I was like, okay, where is this energy coming from? And I just was like, that's it. Like, if there's any mask I need to take off, if there's anything I'm stripping down, if there's any blind spots I'm looking at, like, Alyson is the way to go. I'm calling her right now. Let's see if she's ready to
Mm.
talk. Just sit down and I want to talk everything about your book and all the blessings that are in it.
Mm. Yeah, I'm happy to, be fully transparent. It was such a journey. And yeah, so that was what I was curious about because, each power animal embodies various different healing properties and different textures of medicines. And with raccoon, they're also really known for the healing power of their hands and their ability to do scrying and dowsing. And that's, they don't have great eyesight, but they're seers through touch and through hands. And they also are great teachers of up-leveling our discernment, for who and what is in alignment for us and our ascension and our current path, and also the masks. So yeah, I was curious which of those pieces was the one speaking to you. It sounds like the mask part.
Probably. Now that
Or
you
all.
walk me through it, that's all three right there. Yeah, all three. Yeah.
Hmm.
And trying to be a little more creative with my hands for sure.
Hmm.
Yep. Painting,
Beautiful. Yeah,
sculpting.
because you're such an artist.
Yeah. I did this one right back here.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, I love the fuchsia vibes. Yeah, that's
That
very,
fun.
very alive. Yeah, it feels like a fuchsia tree or something.
And I got to tell you, I love a good book stack. And your book was one Power Animal, 100 Animals to Energize Your Life and Awaken Your Soul is one that I carry with me all the time. I have the digital version because I
Mm,
can't
mm.
just leave it in one spot.
Yes. Well, I'm glad it's a travel companion. I hear that a lot, and that is one of the probably the top 10 things that warms my heart. Knowing that people incorporate either Animal Power book or the deck into their ceremonies, their rituals, their travels. Like, some people, because they have learned how to receive the love and support and guidance of the animals. They don't want to go far without the book because, thankfully, power animal guides are guides that can present no matter where we're at on planet Earth. And that is one of the things that makes them distinct and different from, let's say, the archangel guides or ascended master guides that are more in the other realms that can
Mm.
maybe present if you're a seer or in dream time. But our power animal guides can show up in meditations and dream time as well, of course, but they can also present on the earth plane. And so that it makes me so happy to know that people travel with it. And I also love to see families when they work together with it, because that was one of my intentions. I wanted the deck and the book to speak to children, middle-aged people, and elders. Like I really wanted it to be an all-encompassing experience, and it seems to have come to fruition because I'll get pictures or stories posted on Instagram from other people, and it's like parents working with the deck with their kids, and I just love that so much.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, one of my favorite parts in your book is in your opening.
Hmm.
And let me just read that. Oh, yeah. And with your shamanic approach to life. So, shamanism is a planetary and inclusive practice. It is the spiritual and energetic truth of the earth and the universe. When entered into with reverence, honor, sacredness, and respect, working with the shamanic wisdoms to learn and heal is to open anyone inhabiting planet Earth. Its foundational teachings are the oneness, unity, and acceptance.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's it's both very simple and a most ancient truth,
Yeah.
and also one that carries a lot of layers and a lot of history and a lot of nuance. And so, yes, at the heart and core of shamanism, and before shamanism got its name, it wasn't called anything. It was just what the beings on earth did. We instinctually and intuitively knew to bow in deep honor and reverence to Earth Mother, the planet that we have incarnated into, and to pay her respects and to listen to her messages and to voyage with her. And also, with the same amount of reverence and honor and respect, to connect up to Great Spirit, the center point of pure love source, the divine, and attuning and bridging both
Mm-hmm.
of those planes, and learning how to from that vertical line, from our hearts, from our soul contracts that we devised, and then merging that with the wisdom of Earth Mother and the divine. It was simply just a way of life. And so, yes, it's a sacred art for all of humanity, for all living beings. And then of course, throughout time, there have been various lineages of shamanism that have branched out and created their own very specific songs and rituals. And that's where, you have to, be very mindful. And if you do, take sacred oaths into certain traditions, there are certain things that are passed along that are not to be shared publicly and only be, meant to be used privately or in sacred ceremonies. And that's where things, you have to be incredibly aware and mindful. But shamanism as a whole is a path for all humanity.
I, I hear you. I hear you. I want to help carry that torch with you.
Hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I'm working on, like when I'm talking about ecofeminism, because a lot of people are like, what is that? And I just end up really circulating all the way back to it's helping balance planet Earth. Like the
Hmm.
feminine is in a deficit and it's no longer only affecting women, it's really affecting the planet herself. And being able to balance or, get it back into balance. How do you think people working with power animals can help balance the earth as well?
Hmm. Well, I mean, the first thing that flashed in is I think it helps release, the power animal guides help to release preconceived notions and judgments. I mean, they do infinite things, but that was the first flash answer when you asked that question. When I think of leeches and spiders and ticks and, a lot of people, if they go on a guided shamanic journey and they're calling in the guide who most wants to present at that time, or perhaps even their core power animal guide, the one that's with them every single moment of their incarnation, oftentimes they can be surprised by the guides who show up. And I mean, there have been countless scenarios where someone has either messaged me, or back when I used to do a lot of live events in New York City and LA, they would, after the journey was done, come up to me and they would just be like, I've always had a fear of snakes, but the snake came in and they had a really powerful experience where the snake shared medicine and helped them shed a layer of their old skin and, tap into forgiveness or release an old trauma, and they reorient and get into a completely new relationship with that animal. And that's personally happened to me with the leeches. I didn't have a personal direct connection with that being until I was really, really called to get leech therapy. And I followed that spiritual calling, or the calling of my body to have that medicine. And I found that there was a world-renowned leech therapist who happened to live in Brooklyn when I was living in Brooklyn. He's a man from Poland. I forget his name, but there's a YouTube video of me that's still up. It's very ancient at this point, but you can watch me getting it and learn his name. But long story short, I had only seen leeches in movies and they're portrayed a certain way, so there's like limitations of frameworks and perspectives placed around some of these beings. But I'm so glad I got over any, fear, and the experience I had leech therapy done for above my liver for liver detoxification and then on my knees. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. You can't get in much more direct relationship than a leech attaching itself to you with its hundreds of teeth and then pulling from you the lymph. It's actually
Yeah.
lymph that it
Oh.
brings into one of its chambers to help your body detoxify. And then it secretes and puts into you, I think it's like 140 or 70 healing enzymes. So they're magnificent creatures. And when the leech is attached, you essentially become one with the leech. And when I tell you the communications and the reverence and the awe, and, so that's just one example of the profound shifts. And one of leech's main medicine is alchemy, and it's shifting from
Mm.
fear to love. So I think just in general, you can have a perspective about an animal, and then you journey with that animal, or they come in dream time and give you a message, and all of a sudden that box that you had put that animal in is completely obliterated. And I think that then ability to expand your own mind and expand your own perceptions beyond limitations and previous judgments is a huge healing medicine for the whole planet.
Yeah, absolutely. And just helping people trust their own instincts.
Yes. Yeah, that's a huge key. I am definitely a guide, a fellow earth, walker who believes that we're all equal. That's my podcast is called Ceremony Circle for a reason. We sit in a circle together, and um, you know, every teacher has their own way
Yeah.
and ways of teaching and presenting that feels right for them. But for me, I've never felt comfortable and never been a spiritual guide or teacher who ever tries to tell someone what to do, how to do it, and emphatically place upon someone else an instruction. What is of primary importance to me is honoring every single person's sovereignty,
Mm.
trusting in that person, entering into the space, trusting in that person to find their way themselves. And I can hold a space that supports that and supports that trust within and that sovereignty. But yeah, even with animal powered deck, my instructions were very vague in the information booklet, and it was by design. I even say in the information booklet in there, like, trust yourself. If you want to pull one card, pull one card. If you want to carry it with in your purse that day, carry in your purse. Like, I didn't want this to be a very strict, rigid rules divination deck. It's like, I want to infuse in the energetics of this deck the honoring of the sovereignty. And Luke and I were really talking about this lately. We had quite a long drive over to Houston last week. And on that drive, I just felt so lit up and passionate about this theme of honoring people's sovereignty. And the specific example I can give is there was a sacred ceremony that me and some of my dearest sisters and friends here did recently. And, I think one of the feels like to me a more old paradigm way
Mm.
is, we come in to hold space for this friend and to provide the specific theme of ceremony for this friend that they're requesting. And it seems like usually at one point in the ceremony, then we all go around and speak our prayers for this person. And all of a sudden, that just feels out of alignment for me at this time. And that was really a strong God instruction before going into this ceremony. It was like, rather than imparting what
Mm.
we think the best prayer, specific prayer for this wise woman should be, how about we simply hold space and call her sovereignty even more forward, call her wisdom even more forward. And let's first open up the space to hear from her.
Mm.
What are her prayers? And then we can add our love and our support to her sovereign prayers. But to me, that just feels like an important medicine right now, and an important shift if it resonates, for people, less imposing and imparting and more honoring and trusting.
Mm-hmm. I with female frequency, a lot of the listeners are artists, and so yes, trusting their instincts to follow through with their creations, and then letting it go out into someone's collection or something
Mm.
like that. So I can definitely see how it's trusting your instincts in so many facets of your life.
Yeah, and it's more vulnerable that way, but it's so much more expansive and liberating. And when you do get into more of the center point of the pulse
Mm-hmm.
of the oneness of all sacred divinity with the pulse of pure love, God, Goddess, and Earth Mother, I mean, that's where you're on to something really juicy. And that's where you can just get visions of the web of totality and how it all works and the pulses and the synapses that go, into that web and how it orchestrates to serve everyone's highest, greatest good. And that's when miracles become more commonplace. And, before you hit record, one of the things I had shared with you is that my dear cat, Harry Gatto, aka Jelly Bean, had just crossed over the Rainbow Bridge back into the arms of pure love God less than a week ago. And on his death day, I mean, that whole thing that I just described was so potent. And it was just wave after wave of miracle. And I won't get into the whole story because it literally could go 2 hours like I did with on Luke's podcast yesterday. But the short version is that he was losing, he really couldn't move anymore. He was in kidney failure. I have lived with this cat for 18 years. He and I are the closest of friends and we're in deep communication. And I had been attuning with Jelly Bean the day to have the doctor come here and we would do a ceremony in the yard and support his crossing over. And it was actually scheduled for Monday. And at about 2:30 to 4 in the morning on Saturday morning, I think he was as close to crossing all the way through death's door as you can without it happening, to the point where I read his eulogy to him at 4 in the morning. And I actively thought out loud, gosh, I wish that his passing could be today on Saturday, because I don't even know that he'll make it till Monday. And so again, long story short, I was in the midst of a liver cleanse, so it was really important that I went to get a colonic that morning to support the cleanse. And there was just a lot of deep layers going on at once. But when I went to this colonic appointment, this beautiful medicine woman who's the colon hydrotherapist, who's super professional, never late, was late. And I never have phone sounds, notification sounds on my phone, but I happened to be looking down on my phone and the doctor, Lap of Love, called me. It was on silent, but I saw it ringing. Because she was late, I was able to go outside and take the call. And again, trying to condense the story, but like you see the whole web and the pulsing and the calibration that was happening to provide the exact perfect nucleus for Jelly's passing was starting to happen. And by the time she showed up, I explained to her that I took that call and there was an opening at 1 o'clock that day that had mysteriously, miraculously appeared. And she then was a death doula of sorts, because she has been in this experience before with her husband passing as well, not just animals and pets. And she gave me the precise download that I needed to hold best space for Jelly in the moment of him crossing over. That was the one thing I needed to hear before. She was like, I'll rebook you. You leave. I called Lap of Love. The 1 o'clock was still available. She rebooked my colonic for yesterday. And then God ushered me into the front parking lot of the grocery store so I could go in and get the flowers that Jelly requested. He wanted yellow for celebration. Literally, as I was pulling in, because I had a short time block now. His passing was supposed to be in 2 or 3 days, and now I have 2 hours.
Right.
But I knew it was the right decision. And so I went in, got his yellow flowers, got the red roses, got the white flowers, and then had just enough time to get home, set up the ceremonial space, spend time with him, give him his last favorite meal of coconut yogurt, take him on one final walk together with my husband, Luke, in the front yard. By the time everything was perfectly not rushed, but calmly and perfectly paced and placed, But I had just placed him in the backyard where the ceremonial zone was when Dr. Kimmy magically appeared. It just literally, you could just feel the calibration just honing to the exact moment that was ideal for his crossing over. And that's what I mean when you, because I had to trust myself that I
Yes.
needed to change his passing day.
Change it and staying soft and receptive to these
Yeah.
vibes that were coming in. Yeah. I'm sorry about Jelly Bean. I've been watching him as long as I've been watching you.
He was a part of the online courses,
He
he was
was.
he was in that Brooklyn studio apartment when we would be online together. He it was and is a master space holder, and he
Yeah.
taught me the true definition of healthiest relationships. He was a true wizard, and a teacher through, and will continue to be, but through his last breath here on earth, he was the first being I was with. I was able to hold him in his transition. I held him in my arms, and there's no deeper honoring experience than that. And for him to be my guide and teacher, and what that exact moment, what that essence feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and to teach me about that, so that, when it's my time or Luke's time, or in human form, people that are nearest and dearest to me, I know emphatically that him teaching me what that experience is like will be a gift forevermore. And the last little thing that I'll tell you, the prayer that I had for him, and talking with him was like, just go to pure love God, and we talked about the most efficient, easeful, enjoyable way for him to make that crossing over. And I said, if you tune into your pure love and just take that and go directly to pure love God, what more efficient path can there be?
Right.
And so we had talked about that for the 2 weeks leading up to his death. And I kid you not, after we did the ceremony and we took our time, and then we eventually, buried him in the backyard, an hour or two later, like, we really let each part of the process integrate. And then I was exhausted and I was in grief. And so I came in to lay down, take a little nap, and I was crying. So a couple hours had passed. And then I finally woke up and asked Luke, can we go to the park, walk the dog, let this energy land and
Yeah.
move a bit more? And on our way out to leave for the walk, as I was walking through the kitchen, something told me to glance into his water bowl, and there was a perfect heart left. I have pictures of it. I have picture proof. Like, I had poured the remaining water out, but the remaining water before it had fully dissipated into the air. Had it been 2 minutes later, it wouldn't have been in that shape or form. The water would have been evaporated. But in that exact moment, as we were leaving to go to the park to integrate, I looked down and there was a perfect heart. And Luke and I just stood there and wept, because in those moments, there's an emphatic knowing. It's
Yeah.
a knowing. And I know that he was saying to me, yes, thank you, and I love you. But more than that, I am back with pure love God.
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you got to be receptive to that and see it.
Me too. I mean, it was hard, and I miss him. But I also just, yeah, I just feel so clear and strong and vibrant and grounded in the process of it too, because it carried so much beauty and all of those miracles that I just described. So thanks for letting me give Harry Gatto a shout out.
Yes. Shout out. Yeah. And what I think is also important to hear is that you were rolling with it. You weren't trying to fight it. And even with something as important as Jelly Bean crossing the rainbow, I mean, that philosophy can be carried over with everything. Like, stop fighting it. It may be hard. It's the hardest thing, but you don't have to
Yeah.
fight it.
Yeah, yeah, I think the acceptance and my intention, I love, one of my favorite phrases is just a short 2-word phrase, and it's in relation.
Hmm.
In relation. How can we best be in relation with it all. And exactly to your point, not trying to force something, not trying to resist something, not trying to strong arm something, not trying to impose our will to the point where it turns into control or manipulation. Like, I feel like from the moment of my awakening, I thankfully was taught very early on through Bear Power Animal, through Jesus, through tree medicine, the art of surrender and the art of truly trusting the divine and letting go into the arms of the divine. And not to get back on the jelly bean tangent, but the tree, one of the trees where we did his death ceremony at, it spoke to me and said, "Don't forget, I'm here for you." And I literally sat up with my back against the tree in our backyard as Jelly crossed over. And because that was one of the guiding healing meditations that I would do when I first had the veil lift for me, was I would do these journeys where I would either sit in Bear's lap and fully lean and let go into Bear, or against a tree. And it was just like that tree, that quote unquote family tree with the roots and with everything that pertained to the family medicine, was just like, "I've got you, lean into me, let me hold this for you, and so that you can be best there for Jelly." And so, yeah, that was a huge intention, was in the download that the colon hydrotherapist had given me, was the best way you can hold space for someone in that moment is to focus on the love and gratitude. And of course, that feels like of course, duh thing, but that was just the thing that landed, that I needed to hear, was to make sure in that exact moment that that was where my focus of my essence was, not in, the grief or the sadness or, and I even said to him, I literally was rocking him gently as he was crossing over, and I was literally saying out loud, "Love and gratitude, love and gratitude." And I even said to him, "Mama is good. Mama will be good," because I just wanted him to feel the acceptance and freedom too. I just really do my best in all of my relationships, whether it's business, friendship, marriage. I want my sovereignty and my freedom and liberation respected and honored, and treated in with that liberation way. And I want to do that for all others as well.
Yeah, I got to tell you, just last night, I didn't know I was going to talk about this, but it was a rough night's sleep for me.
Hmm.
But just because it was an emotional night, but I had a deep love and gratitude ceremony with a cousin of mine who has passed that rainbow bridge.
Hmm.
And today is like a 2-year anniversary of her ceremony.
Hmm.
Yes.
Interesting.
And I just loved how much gratitude that I was sitting with for her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for bringing that in. What was her first name?
Hillary.
Hmm.
Yeah. She
Beautiful.
was an amazing, amazing woman, a trailblazer, and an ecofeminist. She was also a North Face athlete and crowned Explorer of the Year from National Geographic.
Wow.
Yeah, she was
Very
doing
brave.
some very brave, very courageous things and meeting people along the way to teach about the atmosphere, the environments, planet Earth. Yeah, gratitude can help with so many things.
Yeah, it's a big, powerful medicine. That's so interesting that the date of her crossing over is today. And I think it's beautiful. And I'm actually glad that, we maybe didn't have an intention of going in this direction, but I think it's so needed, especially over here in the US. We don't speak about death enough. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's something, for the majority of people over here, I feel like it's something that is a bit more on the side of the spectrum of fear, of look away, of stay a bit removed, of more taboo. And it's like, why do we hold a baby's birth as more sacred and willing and able to share pictures about and talk about and celebrate more than it's the same portal. The birth and death is the same portal. And so I myself, am actually I feel really happy to be talking more about these transition periods of the death side.
Me too, because it offers another opportunity to celebrate.
Yes.
Some joy gets stripped away in so many aspects.
And literally, that was Jelly's last wish in that 2:30 to 4 a.m. window. And I thought he was crossing. I asked him, what color flowers do you want? And he said yellow, because don't forget to celebrate. And then get this. So I went and got him sunflowers along with the flowers I wanted to get from the red roses and white ones. But after Luke and our dog Cookie and I went for that walk, when we got back home, Luke said, "Do you want to go out to Jelly's grave one more time before it gets dark outside?" We slid open our back sliding door to go in our backyard where his grave is. For the first time ever, our neighbors on the other side of our fence were having a party. They had their string yard lights, those like fun party lights on. There were kids laughing and playing. There were adults laughing. There were probably 40 people in their yard literally having a celebration.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
And we looked at each other and I was just like, this is Jelly's celebration. He had just been laid to rest in the earth a mere like 3 hours before. And there was a party happening.
I love it. I love it. He got his wishes. He has got his wishes. Wow.
Yes.
I just love how you listen and embrace your divine directives.
Well, I mean, to me, that is the absolute paramount key. That's my thing. And I kind of have this phrase when I would give talks a lot. I would say, I will not compromise my connection with the divine. I will not do it, because I know what life for me looked like and felt like when I was not living in surrender, when I was not allowing my full authentic self to be expressed, when I was not listening to the instructions from God. It was filled with so much suffering, so much anguish, so much pain, so much brutality in relationships. And so knowing what that side is, and then having the good fortune of having a divine intervention to get me into the alignment that would serve me best, and now knowing what the other side feels like to truly live and heed the directives of God. For me, I can't do it any other way. And I know that as long as I'm in that pure connection line and doing what God asks or instructs me to do, there have been countless times where it's been an incredibly challenging initiation, or where I've had to hold a line of something for so long that has been exhausting, and I don't know how much longer I have to hold the line for, or it doesn't make sense to my mind. Like when I was living in New York and I was told to stop doing all events and all talks, and I'm just thinking, well, okay, but then like, what am I supposed to do? I live alone in New York and all the things, but I know that when I do that, not only am I living my highest divine design, but I'm also being of greatest service, because I'm living out God's plan that serves the totality and the highest. And if I'm living on the thread that God is asking me to thread and to weave for the greatest good of all, to me, there's no greater way of living, and there's no greater way that I can be of service.
It sounds so easy, but but I hear what you're saying. Like sometimes this is what your heart is saying and what your guides are sharing with you. But yeah, sometimes that ego, the mind is like, it can't wrap around it.
Yeah. It can be hard, and you can hit up against resistance for sure. But back to that trust piece, I think once, I call it divine connect the dots, because you will be shown the way, and typically it's like just one step at a time, it's by design that way that you don't see the whole map laid out in front of you. And that's to cultivate that trust and that surrender. But, if you take that one step. I mean, there's so many stories of like ego deaths and things that just humbled me so royally along the way, but it set a foundation for me and my path and the way that I teach and guide that I just would never change, for a second. It's built upon such good medicine, and the trust and the alignment gets stronger and stronger each step that you take.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna take that and pocket that one. Put that. Wow. So let's talk about some of those body signposts and listening. How do you get there? Like you're connecting the dots. Are you having is your body giving you sounds to help you trust those instincts? And then,
Yeah.
I mean, then of course you have power animals and then your angels and then your relationship with Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
are
Look
all
at all
those
that
different?
support.
Look at all that support.
Look at all, and that's just a handful out of the infinite,
Yeah.
truly, and I have never been, someone who really felt called to the Buddhist path at all. But the last couple of years, I won't go into the story because it's just like a whole other thing. But some of the stuff that I was traversing last year and a half, it was deep and it was harrowing, and there was a lot of transcending darkness. And it wasn't until more than a year of finding my way through that all of a sudden it got illuminated for me. Oh, wow, my guide in this whole way, he wasn't presenting while it was happening. It was only a year and like a few months into it that all of a sudden Buddha appeared. And I realized had been my guide the whole time. But that's the other thing too. Like sometimes they won't show themselves, or you won't realize the medicine path that you've been pivoted onto, or the purpose of it, or the teaching of it. But so another gift that I have is the clairaudience. So I hear spirit speak to me very clearly. And while I wasn't aware that it was the Buddha and the Buddha heart, I was being told over and over, enlightenment is trying to reach you through equanimity. Enlightenment is trying to reach you through equanimity. And I was just like, what? Like, I don't know. That's not a familiar phrase for me. I really had to actually tune into like this equanimity piece. What does that even mean? How is it applying for me? And also was surprised, like when it comes to enlightenment, there are those stories of like Eckhart Tolle, or people that just spontaneously become enlightened beings. But having enlightenment and attaining that, being, arriving through the path of equanimity would have never been on my radar, So anyways, I wasn't even sure of what was going on until very deep on the path. So yes, I hear spirit speaking to me, giving me those little breadcrumbs and those clues to just barely enough sometimes to keep meditating on what the message is and to keep going. But also, yes, the clear cognizance, just the knowing piece. I don't know if you can think of an example, but sometimes I have met a person and every single part of me, every cell in me says no. And it does not mean that that person is bad. It does not mean that I should judge that person. It just means that in the whole fractal of eternity, we are not in alignment. It is a no for me. And that person might be a yes for the other 50 people in the room. And it might be a wonderful experience, but it's a no for me. It's a no for my alignment. It's a no for the fractals that are composing my present moment and my present moment of my path. And I've had that happen before that's all I need to know. That's literally all I need to know, is that it's a no. And I think it's so important that we honor that. And they don't call this whole experience the great mystery for nothing. Sometimes we will die and go back to pure love God without ever knowing why that was a no for that person. We won't ever get the answer. Sometimes we will. Sometimes a decade later, you'll hear a story and you'll be like, oh gosh, that's definitely why I was not meant to be that person's friend. But sometimes things will remain a mystery forever.
Yeah.
It's all a part of the whole web. But can you recall a time where whether it was an invitation you turned down or a job you turned down or a certain turn in your path where it was either an emphatic yes or no? You just felt it. You just had a knowing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes I think the best part is what is liberating for me is just to say, I just know it and I don't want to explain it any further.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking for any other analytics or any other pros or cons. I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm going to say yes to that project or I'm going to say no to that person. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, weaving it back into the honoring of the sovereignty. And hopefully, it doesn't always happen this way, but hopefully you have people in your life where, if they want further explanation and you say, all I can tell you is it's just a clear no or yes. And the reason I know this is because my body told me so.
Yep. Yeah.
Hopefully they will respect and honor that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, there are, all sorts of ways. Before, I had my awakening, my body was trying like heck to get my attention. I was having panic disorder. I was having autoimmune disorders. I was in a horribly abusive, dysfunctional relationship where on my end of things, I was in denial and codependency and severely lacked self-worth and self-respect and true self-love. And on their end, they suffered from various addictions and other maladies. And then those two things just created a really terrible cycle. But my body, was trying to tell me I was off track. I just really struggled to escape that cycle of insanity, which was why it required a divine intervention for me to get plucked out of it. But I think,
I could just see it.
yeah, that's literally what happened. But for people that want to, at least begin this process of like, how can I even start to try to get into this sync, to try to get into this pulse? It's speaking your readiness. Everything is alive. This energy, the divine energy, and that's pulsing in these other realms is just as alive as you and I. And so, setting up just a sacred space that literally can just involve like bringing in sacred fire, a tea candle. It doesn't have to be something elaborate. You don't have to think you have to do this whole ornate setup and then procrastinate it for 10 months and use I have to set something up as the reason for the procrastination. No, literally, it's just, but it is about, selecting a space that feels like the right space and tuning into, connecting into Earth Mother. Go ahead.
And even if just recognizing that when your space is ready to change, like, as women, we go through so many different changes in 1 month. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to recognize, oh yeah, I just need it to be over here today instead. And just listening to that, it doesn't always have to stay the same.
Yes. Oh my
Those altar
gosh.
spaces. Yeah.
Absolutely. They can definitely get stale, especially if, there's been a specific prayer that you've placed on the altar or a specific item, or maybe you got out of the routine of starting your morning at your altar and the energy is just not activated there. And so, yeah, I think regularly tuning into, does your altar need shifting in any way, is a really important practice. And then, before speaking your readiness to surrender and become at one with pure love divine, I do, recommend getting nestled in and attuning to Earth Mother and giving her thanks, attuning to your heart, because that's the most important place that we want to be connected to and receiving messages and guidance from within our own self is our soul and our heart. And then connecting up to whatever resonates for you, whether it's God, Goddess, the universe, the divine, pure love source. And, so taking a moment of a deep bow and a humble, honoring
Mm.
thanks to those places, but then just simply speaking your readiness. And it can be a sentence or two. It's just saying, to pure love divine, I give thanks and I want to acknowledge my readiness to be a better student of my soul, to be a better student of the divine sacred arts. I'm ready to not only receive, but to also heed your messages. Please, only from these divine, benevolent, pure love spaces named, please send me your calls. I am ready to receive them and I will do my best to answer them with honor. That was maybe 4 sentences, but it can be brief, but that is heard.
Mm.
And then, it becomes our responsibility because it's a co-creation. But the clarity, the whispers, the messages, they will absolutely enter in, but then we have to heed them.
Yeah, that's then we have to heed them. Yes,
Mm,
yes.
that part.
That part. Yeah, sometimes I can get a little sticky, but yeah, I think even being able to give yourself those daily devotionals and recognizing them will help with all of that gratitude. I mean, I know I have to wake up and do daily devotionals daily. Yeah,
That's
it's a daily
great.
commitment back to the relationship of love. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, what more powerful practice could there be than a daily devotion to connecting back to love, and making sure that we're doing our best. That's again, it's part of our responsibility of being humans. Yes, we are here to learn. We're not here to be perfect. We are here to experience the totality of the spectrum and experiences, but it is part of our duty to try to do our best to
Yeah.
be connected and centered in love.
And centered in love and in relationship with our own self. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Let's give a little gratitude for that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, Also, how there was a couple of things that I wanted to backtrack on if we could just for a moment.
Mhm.
We were talking about your book and those power animals coming in, but had a question about your creative process in there. Specifically, like, was there one power animal? Because in the book, you also give meditations and rituals to help that relationship become stronger. Was there a surprise that came to you? I mean, something that like made you laugh or
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm sure it was the writing this book was for sure a top three initiation of my path so far, and it truly was the animals who came to me. Getting clear, I knew I would write a book from the time I was a little girl, and when I was living in New York, there were various publishers who were reaching out to me wanting to work with me to
oh,
write a book, but I couldn't figure out what I wanted the first book to be about. And that, honestly, that quote unquote block lasted for 2 or 3 years, which was a shock. And then I finally aligned with literary agents that felt best for me. And in our meetings together, we thought we had found the perfect topic, which was surrender. And I flew to Bali to write a book on surrender. And in my first morning meditation, all the animals came in and they said, it's not the book.
yeah.
Yeah. So I reached out to my agents and was like, I really hope you guys are on board with this change because I have to surrender the surrender book and let that go. And so it was truly a co-creative process. Literally every single day that I would work and write this book, I would first connect with the power animal realm and just
Yeah.
ask them in batches, either one by one or in batches. Like sometimes I would work on covering 3 or 4 animals per day because I was on a writing deadline too. So it was an interesting balance, of like being connected
Right.
to these other realms and also having to report back to my editor and making sure that I'm meeting the deadlines. But yeah, that different animals would show up and I'd be like, okay, today is flamingo's day. It's penguin's day. It's spider's day. Hmm.
Oh man, I can't. How was the shark day?
I really am intrigued by shark medicine. In the animal power deck, the main message that shark shares is flow forward. So shark medicine to me really can help you get unstuck. And again, that's another one of those quintessential ones that a lot of people like, kind of grit into, or, I had a friend who had very adverse reactions. The shark kept showing up for her for years. And she just really struggled to accept that. And then there was finally, like 3 years later, a breakthrough moment where she finally got it. But yeah, I actually really, really love shark medicine, and it can be a very clear answer provider. Like if there's a specific situation in your life, because you can just ask the deck, to have whatever power animal that will best serve your day to come forward, or you can ask it a specific question. And so imagine, if you're trying to decide to go left or right or yay or nay, and then you pull the shark card and it says flow forward, it's a very decisive, clarifying medicine. So I'm all about the shark.
Clarifying. Yeah. Now that I'm hearing it, I'm kind of hearing the medicine in a different way today, like
Hmm.
very sharp.
Yeah. It's just like, here's your answer, because I
Yeah.
mean, that's how sharks move. They're very attuned and
Very
very
too. They
decisive.
have to know. They have to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They definitely ride the vibes.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm going to Hawaii soon, so I'm gonna work with shark medicine while I'm there.
Beautiful. And how about some dolphins too? Little
Okay.
dolphies.
Yes. Get a little playful action in there. Sure.
Yeah, have a little
Absolutely.
balance.
Okay. Yeah. Um, let's talk about some of your other creative things happening. I love your drumming beats. It
Hmm.
inspired me to read When Women Were Drummers,
Wonderful.
and I absolutely love that book. Love it.
It's a
And
good one.
now I just feel like I've been hearing your voice more and your guitar, like more string or what. I don't, it's like
It is.
it's a different texture. Yeah, I'm moving, some of you can't see me, but I'm like moving in such a way. It's a little more flowy.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a whole different vibe. The guitar was not on my radar. I was sitting in sacred ceremony with grandmother medicine few years ago. Um, and note with that, I only sit in sacred plant medicine ceremonies when I'm very clearly called. And other note, I was on the shamanic path for years and years and years and years before I ever sat in any sacred plant ceremony and wasn't sure it would ever call to me. They eventually did. Grandfather medicine, peyote. No, actually, that was the second one.
Mm,
Hape was one of the first, Hape and Sananga, and then grandmother medicine, and then grandmother medicine ayahuasca, and then grandfather medicine peyote. And I have been cultivating for quite a long time my sacred relationship with grandfather medicine Wachuma. But I always like to clarify that, because there's just a lot of misconceptions around the shamanic path and plant medicines. And not all shamans work with or facilitate plant medicines at all, and I was deeply devoted to the path, like I said, for many years before that ever came in. But I digress. I was talking about, and sitting in one of those grandmother medicine ceremonies, it was, through the night. So it was very dark in the ceremony room. And grandmother medicine came over to me in such a beautiful, loving way and directed my focus to the ceremonialist woman who was playing the guitar. And there was just this whole directive and transmission that happened. And it was actually ayahuasca who told me that I was to pick up the guitar and to learn the guitar. And I was, you never know what messages are going to come through, but that was a more surprising one. And so I humbly the next morning went to some of the facilitators, including the main woman who was playing the guitar and one of the other master musicians who had been sitting next to her. And I said, very humbly, do you have any recommendations? Because guitar has never been on my radar. I didn't think it would be an instrument that I ever felt called to learn, yet I'm instructed to learn it. And that just opened up the most beautiful path. It's like it's such an old friend, and what's so funny has this brought Luke and I together in such a beautiful, a surprising way because, he, back in his LA days, he actually used to play in bands. And he's actually a very talented and gifted guitarist. Luke has a lot of hidden talents. He's also a really gifted singer. And he left me hanging yesterday when I was on his show. I got downloaded a song about Jelly Bean about 8 months ago. I get sent a lot of like lighthearted, sillier medicine songs, just to bring in more of that playful energy. That's typically what God sends me. And there was a sweet, silly one about Jelly Bean. And I started singing it on the episode yesterday. And he didn't join in when we rapped. I was like, why didn't you sing Jelly Bean's song with me? Because he has a great voice. But yeah, so he and I, it's so fun for he and I to play together, and like the way that we weave together in that way is just so glorious. And yeah, I've been working with some beautiful fellow medicine women sisters here, and some of them, come from different places on the planet. So they've passed to me different Portuguese medicine songs. And I've actually learned in this journey that I actually prefer to sing in Portuguese and Spanish more than I do English.
Really?
And so, yes, these are the beautiful revelations that come through when you say yes to these divine directives. None of this was on my radar.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait. So then you learned Spanish?
Yeah.
What?
In Portuguese. I mean, yeah, I have a dear sister from Brazil, Aishel Hill. I'll give her a shout out. And she has been passing on to me various medicine songs in Portuguese. And, my accent is rough and I still, as she says, sounds a little gringo, but yeah, I actually feel it's a strong statement to say, but I think it's a fair statement to say I feel the most resonant singing in Portuguese.
Amazing.
I
Who
know.
would have known?
I not me unless grandmother medicine told me to pick up that guitar. And then that opened up a path, then it was like, oh, Luke can teach me and he has taught me some things, but he's busy writing his book. So then I'm like, how else can I learn? And it's also a little challenging to go to a traditional like music store because I'm wanting to channel what God wants me to transmit and sing medicine songs, and not everyone, is trained in that way. And then a couple of my sisters here were like, hello, I've literally been a guitarist and a pianist and a singer since I was 7. Remember, I grew up in my family were the preachers at the church, and come over to my house every Friday and we'll play guitar together. And I'm like, oh, all of this opened up for me.
I love it. The listening and embracing those divine directives.
Over and over and over. And it just leads you into such miracle territory and expansion and alignment. It never fails.
Okay, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
You are.
Every day. Yes, every day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just love your smile.
Ah, thanks, Jody. You too.
Yeah. You just share. I follow you on the gram and I just think you share so much. You're like, is anyone else having crazy dreams? Is anyone else feeling the fire today? I mean, and like, you're like, listen to the wind, listen to those whispers. What is going on with the wind these days? Wow.
Yeah, it's just helping to usher in. We're in another wave of major awakenings, within our own lives, even if we've had like in my situation, a very pronounced awakening that happened many, many years ago that changed the course of our lives, or additional, more like medium awakenings that, maybe there was something that happened in your life or happened to someone that you love that was just like, oh my gosh, this is a wake up call. Like I need to like pause. I need to tune into the lesson here. All of those things can be classified as true awakenings. But I really feel we're in another very pronounced part of the path of the collective and all of humanity and all living beings and all the worlds of another super big insurgence of an awakening window. And I think these winds are helping to clear out helping to shift,
Hmm.
helping to provide some of these wake up calls, some of these sacred pauses that, unless the hurricane winds come in, you just keep on going about your humdrum life. But
Yeah.
then like the hurricane winds come in and it forces you to like take stock. It forces you to stop. It forces you to have a different perspective. It forces you to check yourself and your life and what's really important. The winds carry a lot of strong medicine. And they're also the carriers of the song. One of my other dear sisters, I'm in her sacred song class. And actually, the main reason I knew I was supposed to enroll in it was because she had first called it Wing and Song. And in this past year, I have been gifted a lot of sets of wings, including vulture wings that, we got the vulture's permission, but we were able to cut
Hmm.
off its wings and I processed them for months. And I normally have them in my office, but I don't right now. Otherwise, I would show you. But vulture wings, dove wings, butterfly wings, phoenix moth wings,
Wow.
parakeet wings. I mean, when I tell you, this is all in the last year, maybe year and a half, but I think in the past year, I mean, set wings after wings after wings after wings. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
they, in some traditions, they believe that it's the birds who brought songs to the earth plane. It's the birds who taught us how to sing. They are the carriers, and they're obviously the winged beings who soar with the winds. And so, yeah, all of it's connected.
It's just making me realize everybody with wings came in this weekend. We had ladybugs,
Hmm.
we've got chrysalis butterflies hanging, hawk.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is a time also personally and collectively for us to, it's going to look different and feel different for each person, but to revitalize our throats, to potentially rebirth our throat chakras, I'm a truth teller and I was really ushered for many months into stepping into that in a really full way. God spoke to me one day and said, you know, so to give a little bit of context, I'm a seer and my
Yeah.
seership is potentially my strongest gift. And God said, see and speak. He was essentially saying, you've done a lot of seeing,
Yeah.
and girlfriend, you got to speak along with it, because I would see a lot and I would just hold myself back. To be really honest, I wouldn't do it all the time, but there were a lot of times where I would suppress the information that I would see, and I would wonder, because of honoring everybody's sovereignty and never
Yeah.
wanting to give unsolicited advice. But I think I sometimes used not ever wanting to give unsolicited advice as a reason to not share what I'm picking up on for somebody. And so God is really, really directing me now. It's see and speak, see and
Mm.
speak. And so, with all these birds and winged allies coming in, it could potentially be also an instruction for us to sing again, to express more and speak more.
Let's do it. Let's
Mhm.
let's speak more. I
Let's do
mean,
it.
let's go, ladies. Let's go.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get my turquoise out, put it on my throat chakra.
Yeah,
Okay.
there
See
you
and
go.
speak more. Well, what a beautiful session. You have helped us with daily devotionals and helping us in tune with our instincts. I want to thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's
I
good to
think
see you
it's
again.
nice to see you. I think it's such a great thing for tuning into our instincts and just trusting those divine directives on the daily, and just to remember that it is just that one step at a time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can do it. I hope everybody can follow you on the gram because I think you share so well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really put out some vulnerable things, and it's helpful.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm definitely not somebody I'm probably in the healthiest relationship I've been with Instagram ever. I really resisted it for years, wanted it to
Yeah.
go away for years, and only when it wasn't going away, I was like, and it's just been it's but I really only share when I really feel called to. And so I guess I say all that because I'm happy to hear that it does feel meaningful and helpful when I do, because I'm definitely not I'm not one of these influencers or,
Yeah.
media based ceremonialists who has it I have to post every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and I don't know what to say today, so I'll just put this picture of this. It's just that's just not how I flow and function with it. But would you like for me to pull one card for us today?
Oh, why, yes, please.
Okay, great. So I'll just tune in here. So for anyone watching, I'm holding the animal power deck, and I just close my eyes and just get connected to my heart. And I call in and thank the benevolent power animal realm. And then today, I will simply ask for the power animal guide who most wants to come in and serve our highest, greatest good. And then I knock 3 times, just clear the energy of the deck. And then I just shuffle through it until the card just clearly reveals. I just feel that it's supposed to be the one. So sometimes it flies out of the deck right away, and other times it takes a second. So we'll see what friend wants to reveal. And sometimes I'll knock 3 times again if this is the deck I have upstairs in my office, and if it's one that, isn't used every day, sometimes I'll clear it a little bit more. And today I feel it coming. Stand by. There she is. Actually, it's 2.
Ooh,
The first one, jellyfish, flow with ease.
come on. Is it
Yeah.
come, we've been talking about flow.
Yeah, just being in that divine river, flying with ease. It's one of my favorite pieces of art. It actually made it onto the side of the animal power box because I love the jellyfish art so much. So,
Yeah. It's
jellyfish,
electric.
it is so mystical. Flowing with ease. Yeah, when you think about the jellyfish in the deep ocean waters, it's just doing exactly that. It's flowing right along with the current. And the other one is kangaroo, eliminating distraction. So two, very different but goes together medicines. Potentially eliminating distraction would help one flow better with that ease. Just like I was saying, well, I don't know, maybe distraction isn't the exact right word, but that recent revelation I had of saying over and over to myself that I never want to give unsolicited advice actually suppressed me from relaying really powerful God guided information to someone. And so that could be interpreted as a version of a distraction, and so by
Mhm.
me letting myself see the potential of me doing that unconsciously and eliminating that distraction, then that helps me and all flow with better ease. So thank you, jellyfish and kangaroo.
Thank you, jellyfish and kangaroo.
Mhm.
Ah, I love it.
Little
Thank you.
sweetness.
And thank you, Power Animals. Thanks for
Mhm.
everybody joining us today. All of our guides.
Yes.
What a special day. Yes, and I see your book right behind you.
Oh, yes. Yep. With the black
Black
jaguar friend
Jaguar.
on the front. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you, yeah, for allowing whatever was meant to be said today to be said. It was a beautiful voyage, and thank you to everyone who joined us.
Wonderful.